it's Kris from My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop, and I am so thrilled to be able to take you on this journey of being able to make the brand new quilt from Kimberbell, which is called Quilting Through the Seasons. Now, this quilt is absolutely phenomenal. It may feel a little overwhelming at first, but I promise you that you can do this. And it really is a lot of fun to stitch out. I've been having an absolute blast. So let's take a closer look at this quilt and see what lies ahead. I'll be dividing this class up into several different sessions so that we'll first focus on doing the main quilt. You can see that it is a 20 by 60 inch main quilt background. Now with that comes a lot of really cool embellishments, and these are seasonal. So what you do is you actually keep the main quilt up all year round, and then each season as it changes, you also get to change the different elements of the quilt as well. So let's take a look at this wreath. Isn't it so sweet? I love the stitching on this. Even more so, I love the flowers that are attached to it. And what I have pictured here are the spring flowers with a little fringe embellishment in the center. And yep, that's done on the embroidery machine. And I'll show you how that's done during this course. But you'll also notice that we can switch out these flowers for the different seasons. So I can either have more of a summer look, a fall, or even a winter look to my quilt, which is a lot of fun. We even have the appliques of being able to do the bicycles, and yep, look how cute those little flowers are that stick out of the pocket basket. And we have some other simple appliques, including the house, the sweet little bird, and more. Now, also take a look at these frames. These frames are interchangeable. So, yep, that's right. They're going to switch out for the seasons too. You're going to only have to make the frame once, but the little pictures behind it, those change out. And it's incredible how this all comes together. I love the sentiments on this quilt. For example, to everything there is a season. Yep, that's what it says right at the very top, and that's what takes us through this whole quilting project. And then, of course, my favorite saying is, I'm going to make everything around me beautiful, and that will be my life. Who doesn't love that and believe it to the core? Now, you can also see that we're going to be doing some piece blocks, and that's all done on the embroidery machine, and the background quilting is phenomenal as well. We have an adorable little banner that changes out seasonally, and even the quilts are tied on by buttons, and we'll even make the buttonholes on the embroidery machine. It's incredible how it goes together. So you can see throughout this quilt, not only are you going to really enjoy this keepsake, but it's something that you are going to enjoy for years to come. It really is timeless. And I just love the fact that we're going to learn so many new techniques that we can use on our embroidery machines. And we're going to do this together in this course. So let's talk about what are the items you're going to need to make this quilt. Well, first of all, you're going to need this book right here. And this is a nice, thick book because let me tell you, you know that Kimberbell is going to take us step by step with all of their great instructions that really guide us throughout this process. You really can't go wrong. Now, with this book also includes the accompanying CD, and this has all the different file formats, and this is where you're going to find all the designs. Now, remember, background quilting designs are sold separately and can be found at kimberbell.com. You may be interested in purchasing a fabric kit for this, and it's a beautiful bag full of all that yummy fabric, and you know that you have everything you need in order to complete this quilt, which really comes in handy, doesn't it? This quilt kit also includes even the backing fabric. You can find this kit at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. Along with the kit, you definitely want the embellishment kit to go along with it. Now at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com, we always include both of them in the same purchase. I think it's really important that you have the proper embellishments to be able to do this project right. And let me tell you, there are so many different things that are included, including all of the buttons and the different felt pieces, the embroidery leather, mylar, mirror fabric, ribbons, tulle, twine, velveteen, vinyl, you name it, it's all in here. So even if you were to choose to do your own fabrics rather than purchase the fabric kit, I would highly recommend purchasing the embellishment kit all on its own. This is a lifesaver. You'll be so glad you did when it comes time to making the quilt. You also may be interested in purchasing a thread kit. It's totally optional. You may have enough threads in your home to be able to complete this. But if you want to make sure that you have the threads that really coordinate with this quilt, I would recommend purchasing a thread kit. We have two different brands that we represent. We have Glide and we have Hemingworth. So in these kits include 20 different thread spools, and you're guaranteed to know that these thread colors match exactly the fabrics that are in the quilt. Let's talk about stabilizer. You can see here on page 17 that you have all the different stabilizers that are needed listed out. So anywhere from shapeform interfacing to FlexiFoam, Kimberbell project batting is a definite must. And then definitely make sure that you have the fusible backing, some light mesh cutaway stabilizer, heavy cutaway stabilizer, sticky back tearaway, light tearaway, and wash away. That's right, we're going to be using a whole bunch, and it will be worth it. I promise you that. So with all those items ready to go, let's go ahead and talk about cutting, shall we? So cutting can seem a little intimidating, but I promise you it's worth your while in making sure that you follow the diagrams exactly as they have outlined. And thank you, Kimberbell, for having those for us. And it really is very well laid out here in the book. So if you turn back to page 6, let's do that together. You're going to see here that it's laid out as to what the swatch fabric is, and it even has the actual color number for those of you who are using the Kimberbell fabrics. That's really nice. The purpose of the fabric that we're going to be using and what season it is, or the quilt section that it's a part of. And here's where you'll find the different size cuts that you will need on each of the fabrics. But I want you to pay close attention to right over here. I'm on page 7, and it has another column here that says block by block size. So for those of you who are doing background quilting, this is really key. You want to make sure and pay close attention to what is outlined in blue. Now, all this does is that it gives us a little bit more wiggle room on our filler blocks for doing the machine applique. If you've forgotten to do that, I promise it won't be the end of the world. You'll probably be just fine in doing these standard sizes, but it is definitely helpful if we can remember to do the block by block sizes, again, for those of you who are doing the background quilting. And it's not on all of them, it's only on our filler blocks. Okay, so we'll keep going through here. That is one section that tells us what all the different fabrics are, but this is the section that I want us to really pay close attention to, and these are our fabric cutting diagrams. So here you can see what is the fabric. It's actually pictured right here. It has the fabric number that it goes with. So for example, this one says F58. Well, if I go back over here and I find F58, I know that this is the exact fabric pattern that I want to choose. Okay, so if you're not sure over here, if you're taking a look at this pictured diagram and you're going, well, which one is that? I can't quite tell. No worries. Just refer back to the number that it coordinates to and go back to the number that you see listed here. Now, I'm going to go through a few different fabrics with us in this video. And I won't be cutting out the entire quilt on video, but I have chosen 4 specific fabrics to be able to refer back to. Again, these are the numbers. This is the pattern that it's following. These are the measurements that you're going to be cutting. Are you ready to get started? Let's do this together. I know you can do this. And I will say, this part can be a little time consuming. Just be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, and be able to turn on some good music and enjoy an evening of just cutting things out. I promise you that if you will do that and do all the prep work beforehand, this quilt is going to be a much more pleasant experience making it because you have everything all ready to go right at the time that you need it. So I highly recommend that you take the time, and it's going to take several hours to do this, but you got this. I believe in you. Now, once these items are cut out, it's important that you separate them. And again, they tell you exactly how to do so, in what groupings to put them in. You can use something like a Ziploc bag, or we even like little bags like this that you can find on Amazon and be able to put your pieces in these to coordinate with what section you need to go to next. So I have found those items to be very, very helpful when it comes to organizing and prepping my fabrics. All right, let's go ahead and begin with the first fabric that I'm going to go through with you together. So let's go ahead and start with an easier cut first to begin with, shall we? Let's go to F33. I can see that it's this really dainty daisy pink fabric, and it's this one that is right here. And I'm going to situate this so it looks just like the one found in the diagram in the book. You can see here that the first cut I need to make is at 2.5 inches. So I'm going to start at 2.5 inches, and I'm going to slice all the way up. And then it has a 4-inch, 4-inch, and another 2.5 inches. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening here. First off, I'm going to line this up against a marking on my cutting mat, or I could use my ruler to help me, either way that you feel most comfortable. And I'm coming over 2.5 inches. So 1, 2.5. And I make my first cut. All right, now it looks like we have a lot of scraps. Yes, we have plenty of fabric to be able to work with. I'm so glad that we do, and I'm going to set this aside to use at a later time. Now, my 2.5-inch strip has been cut. Now it's time to subcut. So in order to subcut, let's take a look back at our book here. If it helps you to be able to rotate your book to just wrap your head around what's happening with this diagram, then I definitely recommend you do that. It needs to be subcut at 4 inches and another 4 inches and a 2.5-inch square. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this so that it makes sense to me that my first cut is at 4, my second cut is at 4, and then 2.5. With that being set aside, I'm also going to rotate my strip. And my first cut will be at 4 inches. Four inches, done. Second cut, another 4 inches. Complete. And my third cut is a 2.5-inch square. So all I have to do is go over 2.5 inches. And that is little enough to be stash or trash. Here we go. So all of my pink for this quilt has been cut. Not too bad, right? Now, at this point, what I can do is come back to these first pages and find F33. I can see here where it's being used. It's being used in the large summer panel, border 5, and the small summer panel, border 5. So the quilt section or season that I would put in a little baggie would be for summer. So I might go ahead and take this little pocket here, and I could write the word summer with a dry erase marker, or if I wanted to, I could even put a little piece of paper tape on there and just write with a regular marker if I want to be extra careful that it doesn't come off. And all I'm going to do is take these pieces, and there you go. Here is my summer packet. So now when I do the rest of the cutting, anytime that the fabric says that it's for the summer part, I'm going to put it in my summer packet. How cool is that? So again, this organization is really, really key. So let's go ahead and move to F49. That's fabric 49. And in our book, we can see here that it is on page 9. If you want to take a closer look at what these little dainty flowers are, here we go. It's a fat 16th. There are quite a few pieces that are cut out of this fat 16th. I'm so glad that we have a diagram to follow, right? F49, here we go. I am on page 13. And if we take a really close look at this, the first cut is going to be at 4 inches. I'll just make a cut all the way through to the end of my fabric at 4 inches. My second cut is at 3 inches. So again, I'll cut all the way at 3 inches all the way through. Now at the 4-inch mark, going back to that first cut, we will have to do a subcut, right? Now we can see here that I will subcut that 4-inch strip by 3.5. And oh my goodness, we've got kind of a twofer going on here because we have 2-inch strip by 7 inches and 2 inches by 7 inches. Don't panic. Let's take you step by step on how this is done. My first cut is the easiest one, and that is at 4 inches. My second cut is going to be at 3 inches. And this, my friends, is what I'm going to save for other projects later on. Can never have too much fabric, right? Okay, now that we've done both strips, let's go ahead and do the subcutting. Again, I want you to refer to your book. We're going to turn it like this. And I know that I need to do a 3.5-inch cut first, and then we'll go the 2, 2, and 7. So I'll turn my fabric just like that, and I'm going to cut it at 3.5 inches. Sometimes I have to double check, which is not a bad idea. Okay, 3.5 inches is complete. Now, how do I get 2 inches by 7 inches? Well, since my fabric is already laid out this way, I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 7 inches, and then we'll go back to the 2 and 2 here in just a minute. Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. This is at 7 inches. And remember, I need to make 2 2 by 7-inch strips. So I'll go ahead, turn that back around, and simply cut it right in half. And there you have it. We have 2 2-inch by 7-inch strips, and we have 1 4-inch by 3.5. Perfect. I'm going to set these aside for a moment, and now let's do our second cut. The second cut was 3 inches, and so it's a 3 by 3. So I'll go ahead and turn this around and cut at 3 inches for my first block. My second cut also needs to be at 3 inches. So I'll do that once again. And it looks like my third cut is going to be 2.5 by 2.5. All right, well, I already know that I have enough on this side. I have enough on this side. I'll go ahead and trim this to be 2.5, but I will need to do one more cut after that. That is just simply turning it around once again and trimming this up at 2.5 inches. Aha! I have all of my pieces cut now for my blue. fabric number 49. Okay, so where do all of these go? Well, let's take a look. We go back to our instruction book. I'm going to find fabric 49. And it tells us here that we're going to be using it in the 4 square, the stripes, so this is going to be in the piecing, the portrait 1 summer beach background, and the portrait 2 spring butterflies butterfly. You can also see here what quilt sections they belong to. Because I have multiple cuts here, I may also be wondering to myself, all right, I've got to pay attention to which cut goes where. Well, we know already, as we did in the previous packet, that this was our summer packet. So I can see summer right here, and it is a 3.5 inch by 4 inch piece. So I come over here and I find my 3.5 by 4 inch piece, which is this one right here, and take a look. It goes right into that packet. Again, this is my summer one. So do you see how wonderful this is to just be organized and have it all prepped and ready to go? And then you would do that same step with all these other fabrics. You simply find which size it is and what packet it will go into. And we're ready to move on to my third piece that I'd like to show. And that is this one right here. This is a little bit bigger piece, right? This one is going to be, let's see, F11, okay? So F11, it calls for a fat quarter. Again, you can see the different blocks. Now you're going to want to pay close attention to what is highlighted in blue. And that's again for those of us who are doing the block by block quilting. Now, if you make it a little bit larger and you're not doing block by block quilting, but you're going according to the diagram, that's totally fine. But the nice thing that Kimberbell has done for us is that they've highlighted it in blue. What do you know? The diagram also shows the highlights in blue. Isn't that wonderful? So we don't have to worry if we've gone too much or not enough. So that is really, really key, and I love that so much. The rest are going to be cut exactly as outlined in the diagram. Now, one more thing to also pay attention to is this. If there is a piece that is calling it as a background, that is where you will also want to do another piece of something called Kimberbell Fusible Backing. You can see it right here. This is awesome stuff. I use it all the time on my backgrounds. It really helps prevent puckering. Now, sometimes people say that they put it on all their pieces. I think that's a little overkill. I would recommend simply putting it on your background pieces only. So if you see something that says background, you should also cut a corresponding piece that is that same size. Now the first cut that we're going to make on this fat quarter is a 6.5 inch strip, and then we'll turn it around and we'll subcut 10.5 inches and another 8.5 inches. Then we'll go to our 5 inch square, turn it around, subcut this one to be 3.5 by 4 and 4. So it's going to shrink it down a little bit more. And then the final cut is the 2 inches by 9 inches. So let's take a look at this. One of the first things I want to tell you when it comes to cutting out a fat quarter, and when I first look at this, I'm seeing lots of wrinkles. In fact, maybe too many wrinkles, more than I would like. So if you've got fabric that's got nice big folds in it, just do yourself a favor and press it right now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now at the ironing board. This feels a little nicer to play with, for sure. Now, I place my fat quarter with the 18 inches going across and the 22 inches going up. And I could certainly take a long ruler and cut all of this out at once. What I'm actually going to do, though, is I prefer to bring my fabric together as a fold. And the reason for that is I just like using smaller rulers whenever possible. Sometimes you can't, but I do like the smaller reels just because sometimes I feel like I have more precision. It's a little bit easier to work with, but again, it's totally up to you. Now, all of these pieces have been oversized. So if it's not exactly, I'm looking at this going, well, it's a little wonky, you're going to be just fine because again, all of the pieces are oversized. Now, what I will do, just because I'm a little particular sometimes, is I like to give it a little trim on the edge just to align my edges a little bit more. But here we go. So I'm going to find a vertical line on my board, and let me take a look at my instructions once again. Always remember, it's a good idea to make sure that you check this several times before you make that cut. 6.5 inches is the first one I'm going to do. So there we go, 6.5. There you have it. That's my first cut. My second cut is at 5 inches. So I'm going to find a line here and follow that at 5 inches. And my third cut is at 2 inches. There we go. This is my stash. Okay, let's set these aside and work on cut number 1 first. Now I'll go ahead and open this up and do my subcutting. So again, find a line. It goes over the line a little bit, that's fine. And this is going to be subcut to 10.5 inches. Nice. And my second subcut is at 8.5 inches. Okay, so the second cut, I need to have a 5 by 5 inch square. So I'll go ahead and open this up and find a line. And trim. 5 by 5, just like that. Now I need to subcut it to be a 3.5 by 4 inch square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this back around. And the reason why I'm doing that is because when I take a look at my instructions right here, the 3.5 is the first cut. The one on the side is always the second cut. So I'm going to go to 3.5 inches. That means I just have to trim a little bit off of this first one. Find a line. And you can see 3.5 inches right there. Trimming about an inch off. Set that aside. And this needs to be 2 squares that are 3.5 by 4 inches. So I could open this up and do it separately, but I'm actually going to go ahead and keep this folded so that I can cut both squares out at the same time. But if you have a little selvage there, you may want to trim it off. Okay, 4 inches. Stash, and take a look at that. I've got 2 3.5 inch by 4 inch pieces of fabric. Now my final fabric is this one, and this one is 2 by 9. So that's going to be pretty simple, right? I'll just go ahead and lay this out right here and cut at the 9 inch mark. And voila, there we go. Now, remember we talked about the fusible backing needing to be on the background. So let me go back and take a look and remind myself which one that is. And that is the Stacked Books 8.5 inches by 6.5 is the one that I want to add my backing to. Let's find that piece that I had cut earlier. That's this one right here. That's my 8.5 by 6.5. You could do this a couple different ways. You could either just trim an 8.5 by 6.5 inch piece of the backing, or sometimes what I like to do is I just go ahead and lay it right on there and then basically use this as my template, just like that, and cut it out. Sometimes I find I get a little bit more out of my backing fabric when I just do it off the roll like that. But it's totally up to you. Just trim that little stray piece off. Now let's go over to the ironing board. With my fusible backing right side facing up, this is the glue side, and you'll know it is because there's a little bit of a sheen there. That's going to be up against the back of my background fabric. And then I'll take my iron and just hold it in place for a few seconds. You may find it helpful to use a little bit of steam. And I always like to do from the front and the back. And one more time for good measure. My background fabric is all prepared and ready to go. So how are we doing on our fabric cutting? I hope it's a successful experience for you. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out. I'm always happy to help answer anything that you might be wondering about. Now, we've done the fabrics, but there's also an important part of being able to cut the embellishments from the embellishment kit. One such item is the sun-kissed peach embroidery felt. There's really nothing different. It's the same thing, just don't be thinking about that if it's felt versus fabric that it changes. It's the same exact technique, but let's go ahead and do it together. Let's turn in our books to page 16. Here you're going to see all the embellishment cutting diagrams. So again, these are important to prepare and have ready in your pockets as well at the same time as your fabric pieces. Here I am with a 6-inch by 11.5 inch piece of embroidery felt. My first cut is going to be at 5.5 inches, and I will cut all the way through. And then I subcut to 6 inches. Then I need to subcut these two small pieces to a 2x4 and a 2x3. First cut at 5.5 inches. Set that aside. And now I'm going to rotate my fabric, or my felt, I should say, and we're going to subcut. This first piece is going to be cut at 6 inches. There we go. So with this piece, I'm going to go ahead and turn it the other way, the way it was at the very beginning, because I want to do a 2-inch and a 2-inch strip here. And another 2 inches. Set that aside. And now I'm going to subcut one of these to 4 inches and the other to 3 inches. So I'll turn it back around. And what do you know? It is 4 inches. So that worked out well. And this one is going to be turned around and be at 3 inches. And there you have it. Our sun-kissed peach embroidery felt is complete. Now let's take a look, and I'm back on page 14, and I'm going to find where it tells me the sun-kissed peach embroidery felt, which is right here. And it also tells me I'm going to be using that larger piece in the spring, and I'm going to be using those smaller pieces in the summer. So again, we've got our summer packet right here. What do you know? Guess what we get to do? I'll tell you, this is so satisfying. When you begin putting all of these pieces together in collections, then it just makes you feel so much better. You're like, I can do this. I can totally do this, right? And it's just very, very rewarding. You are going to be rewarded. I promise you that, for taking the time now to get your fabrics prepared, ready to go. Let's go ahead and get the fusible backing on our background pieces, and let's have everything cut out, ready to go, because let me tell you, my friends, this is a fun one, and we're going to have a great time doing this together. Now, in my upcoming videos, we're going to separate it and divide it up a little bit. We'll have videos on how to do like a simple applique. We'll do multi-hooping for those of you who may have smaller hoops. We can still do this quilt with that. We're going to talk about background quilting and how to add that to your different quilt blocks. Let's see, we'll do piecing in the hoop, we'll do fringe applique, all kinds of fun things. So the pre-recorded videos are all going to be done for you so that you can view them at any time, night or day, and on your time schedule. And all of that is going to take place with the main quilt, again, the one, the background. Now, when it comes to embellishments, I invite you to be a part of our live sew along, or maybe I should say stitch along, that we will be having in a short while. So what I want you to focus on now is to finish up the main quilt. Then we'll take 4 weeks, we'll divide it up by technique, and we'll go through and do each of the different embellishments. It will be recorded, it's live, but it will be recorded, so which is nice. If you have questions right away, you can ask them, and I'm happy to help answer. Again, we always like to record our classes because we know that the schedule doesn't work all the time for everyone. So check those out. And again, all of this will be found on our YouTube channel. So be sure to like our YouTube, subscribe to YouTube so that you are the first to know when these different videos come out. And we appreciate so much you being here. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see your progress. Please post pictures. Make sure to tag us on social media. It's the hashtag My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop. And I would love it if you would also tag Kimberbell Designs. So, all right, everyone, best of luck to you. You got this. I'm rooting for you. Let me be your cheerleader. Let's do this and have some fun. Bye-bye.